Hi guys, it's me, Mr. P, coming to you from Smyrna High School, reaching out to our distance learners. And today we want to look at something we've been looking at in class, and that is how to read a tape measure. How many of you at home can read a tape measure or have ever had any experience with it? It's actually kind of a difficult task, so that's why we want to spend a little time in dealing with how to read a tape measure. So when we think about how to read a tape measure, I have two tape measures laid out here before us. One is a Stanley tape measure, just one that you would buy just anywhere. This was the one that I used when I did construction work. And the other one's one that we've kind of been working with in class. And so if you'll notice, we have from 8" or 8 to 9, and that is 1 inch. But in this yellow tape measure, you'll notice that it's just a tad bit different than that of the regular tape measure, and we'll get into that in a minute. So we understand in this line here that here is an inch, and so you see a red mark, a black mark, and a green mark. Notice how long the red mark is, how long the black mark is, and how long the green mark is. There's a reason for that. If you'll notice this upper tape measure, once again, how long the half mark is. Then you go to the quarter mark, then the eighth mark, and then this one has 16 marks. But the longer the mark, the more value that it has to it. So here's 1 inch. So this red mark is half of an inch. So we see that there's 1/2, 2/2 in an inch. If this was a dollar bill, this would be 50 cents right here, 0.50. So that if you had 50 cents in your pocket, you would have half a dollar. So we see that the half mark, 50 cents. We go back down to the next one, and this is what's called a quarter of an inch. It's written like this right here, but if we put it in terms of money, if I had 25 cents in my pocket, I would have 1 quarter. This other mark over here, it's a quarter mark, but this is sometimes confusing because this one is 3 quarters. And if it was money, if I had 3 quarters in my pocket, I would have 75 cents. So it's about how far we move every time. From this quarter, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3 quarters that I've moved. So that if I move here, I've only got 25 cents in my pocket. If I move here, I've got 50 cents in my pocket. Or if I move here, I've got 75 cents in my pocket. And it's the same all the way on up. Every time you come to this mark and this mark, it's the same. So if I said 9 1/4, or 9 1/4, 9 3/4, 10 3/4, 10 1/4, 10 3/4. If I went to 11, it would be 11 1/4, 11 3/4. So it's the same. Once you learn the basics of it, the quarter mark and the 3/4 mark are the same on every inch. The half mark is always bigger, so it's 11 1/2, 10 1/2, 9 1/2, 8 1/2, 7 1/2. It's always halfway. 7 1/4, 7 3/4, 8 1/4, 8 3/4. Now these next little lines, especially on this one, these green ones are our 1/8 inch marks. So it's just a series of cutting things in half. I've got 1 inch. If I cut it in half, I've got a 1/2 inch. If I cut a half in half, I've got a 1/4 inch. If I cut a quarter in half, I've got an 1/8 inch. And so we see 1, 2, 3, 4 of these in an inch. 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8. and it stays the same all the way on up. 9 1/8, 9 3/8, 9 5/8, 9 7/8. It stays the same. It repeats every time. 10 1/8, 10 3/8, 10 5/8, 10 7/8, 11 1/8, 11 3/8, 11 5/8, and 11 7/8. So it's just a series of breaking it down. A half, a quarter, 3/4, 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, and 7/8. Now on this tape measure here, this one has even smaller little marks than this tape measure does. Tape, for example, if we put this up here, you'll notice all the marks line up the same. But here we have eighth marks. Here's 8 1/8, 8 3/8, 8 5/8, 8 7/8. The marks are smaller, but here's your 3/4, 1/2 inch, 1/4. But notice this mark, this tape has even smaller markings. Those are what's called 1/16. And so there are 16 little 16ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And just like I moved a 1/4 inch, I moved another 1/4 inch, I moved another 1/4 inch, and I moved another 1/4 inch. Anytime I move a 16th, that's a 16th mark. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. So the 16 marks for us will be the smallest marks that we will use and that we will deal with. So remember your odd numbers. On your eighths, 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8. It's the same way on your 16s. 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, 15/16. So in class we would say something like mark 8 and 9/16, mark 8 and 7/8, mark 8 1/2. Or if I were to say mark 9 and 15/16, I always know that it's going to be those little bitty 16 marks. I know that my 3/4 marks and my 1/4 marks are the same size. So 1/4, 3/4, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16. So study these videos and redo them, and I may post some more videos in the future. I hope this helps, but we'll be testing soon over a tape measure, so be sure to practice up. And for our distance learners, when you come back, looking forward to seeing you, and remember, until then, stay safe.